Hey folks, hey, this is Chief Webb. We just did a video on doing VLOOKUPs and adding units to your ESR, and now we're going to go try to figure out from this whole ESR how many pieces of equipment have all parts on hand to fix it. So one thing, it takes a long time to download some of these larger ESRs, so what I don't want to do is have to download again. So I'm going to copy this this worksheet, copy, create a copy, move to end. And so I don't mess it up. And so I'll rename it, all parts, line caps, no, on hand. Okay, so we rename that. And so we'll still have all the integrity, because what's going to end up happening is I'm going to end up deleting some stuff from off of this worksheet. And I don't want to delete everything. So we got to be able to figure out some stuff. So we already added the units here, so we know who owns the property, and then we're going to scroll over to the requirement quantity. So requirement quantity, quantity issued to the work order, quantity on hand, and quantity at the next level. So depending on what next level is and stuff, or where it was ordered, will determine your next level. So I'm going to go up here and do a data filter. Of course, it's going to move me all the way over like I don't want it to. And I'm trying to do this on my phone, so bear with me. So a couple things, right? So you see this 0.000. That means that no part was ordered against default. Might have been a code out, might be a work order to the SMC or to the LRC or whatever. So they didn't even attempt to order anything for this. So I'm not even worried about those. But one thing that I'm going to do is, and we know negative numbers, right, are recoverables. So I'm going to unselect everything. I'm going to get rid of this stuff because recoverable parts don't play into all parts on hand. And if you didn't order a part, well, that's probably, that also doesn't play into it. So we're going to delete all of these rows. So normally I'll highlight that row, do Control Shift down, and it'll highlight everything. So I'm going to try to do that with this phone in my hand. Control Shift down arrow, just highlighted all of those rows that we filtered for, and I'm going to delete those, because they're not part of the discussion. Okay, so now it's going to leave us with the single zero and then all positive numbers. So what is the single zero? Single zero means somebody attempted to order something, but they either didn't put a quantity in the required quantity when they were ordering it, because you see the material, right? They put in the NSN on what they wanted, but they didn't put in a quantity, or the part was rejected or canceled. And so basically what that tells me is they still need this part, but it's not coming in because there's no quantity in here. So what I'll do is I'll change this number to 9999. And so this will still be part of the formula or the analysis to determine if all parts are on hand or not for a specific piece of equipment. So I'm going to copy that and then put that in all of those cells right there. So Control C, sorry about that. And then I'm gonna highlight all these zeros. And so what are there? There's 65 of them in the division. Control V. So I just pasted that 9999 in, and I'm gonna make those all red. I'm gonna send an email out to the brigade techs and say, hey man, and I see I missed one. Hey man, somebody needs to look at this and figure out what the quantity is and fix it. So I'm gonna make them red. Make all those red. And then when this is all over, I'll send them an email, and I gotta add 9999 to there. And so we'll get that squared away hopefully here soon. So now I've taken that, it said zero, but the reason it said zero because it wasn't a quantity, so they still need it. So we want to make sure we're evaluating it. And so now we filter, we got positive numbers, right? Meaning somebody ordered something for that particular thing. Let's see what's a blank. That's that last line in the ESR. So let's delete that last line. Delete. So clear that filter. So now we got all positive numbers, right? 1 all the way down to 9999. So now we'll be able to do the analysis, and it's a real number. So next to this column, I'm going to insert a column, and I'm going to call it all parts on hand. All right, so the way I do it, and I'm sure there's other ways to do it, right? So anyway, we just do what in GCSS-A, we're just doing the best we know how to do. So what I'll do is I'll do an if statement. And basically the if statement reads this way. And I'm going to try to scoot over a little bit so we can walk through this before we do it so you'll understand what exactly we're telling Excel to do. I'm basically asking Excel, hey, if the quantity issued to the work order plus the quantity on hand in the storage location, like on your shop stock, plus what's at the SSA, so these are the parts that are immediately available right now in your footprint, if your inventory is accurate, is greater than or equal to the requirement quantity, give me a value of 0. And I'll show you why I use 0. So if it's if you have the part, it's 0, and if you don't have the part, it's going to give you a value of 1. So the way we do that is we go up here to our function, we use the if function. Okay, and everybody's ESR is going to look a little bit different, right? So the logical test. So the logical test is sum, S-U-M, and then you're going to do your brackets. So shift 9. So basically it's starting off if the sum, and don't type up in here, it's going to make your life difficult. But you can if you're squared away. So just put the word sum and then that closed bracket down here. And say the sum of, and then whatever your cells are, just click in here, issued, on hand, and next level. Just highlight those 3 things and let it go. Then go back in here, close that bracket, so shift 0. So you see it, sum, and then we highlighted those 3 cells and close the bracket, is shift period greater than or the equal sign, and then go back up here, click on the requirement quantity. See how that works? So the sum of those 3 cells is greater than or equal to the requirement quantity. If it's true, if the sum of the parts, so you either already issued it to the work order, you got a bunch. So you see this one? They have a requirement quantity of 1, and they already issued 1 to the work order. So it is equal to, in this instance. It's not greater than, but it is equal to. So if it's greater than or equal to, that means that they have that part on hand for that specific fault. All right, so that's the level of detail we have to get to. So put in a 0 if it's true, and put in a 1 if it's not true. All right, and then say OK. And as you can see, it gave us a value of 0 because the quantity issued plus on hand plus next level is equal to, greater than or equal to, this quantity. And so just like in the last video, we're going to apply that formula to the whole ESR. Bam. And so we got all these 0s and 1s and everything. And so you can see that that's a formula. All right. Instead of a formula, now that we have it applied, we want the actual value. So we're going to highlight that whole column, go up here, copy, paste in the value. So instead of a formula, now we have the actual numbers, 0 and 1. Okay. So that's part 1 of the whole process. So now we have a value for each fault. Now we got to take that fault business. I'm going to undo this filter so nothing's filtered. So now we got to figure out, okay, how many of the actual pieces of equipment have all parts on hand? And so the way I do that is I do a pivot table. So I just click in any cell. It doesn't matter what cell, wherever, and I'm not highlighting anything. I'm just clicking in a cell. Go up here to Insert, Pivot Table. And it's going to highlight the whole spreadsheet, so that's fine. The only thing you need to know about pivot tables is, not the only thing, but one of them is that every column has to have words in the heading. And then Excel will use those as kind of filters for you. So you get this blank thing, this blank pivot table, right? It inserts a new sheet. So you click in here, it's going to give you all the heading choices. So the heading choice that I choose is equipment. So I want the equipment number. So those are all the equipment numbers. And then I got to go down to the all parts on hand. There it is right there, the one that we created. Bam, I click that. And it's giving me the sum. And so you have the ability to change that too. But you want the sum of all parts on hand. So if we go back, right, to the original sheet, if a piece of equipment, if it has all parts on hand, where am I at? Oh, that's the first sheet. Here's that spreadsheet. So I'll make that yellow too. If a piece of equipment, if you think about it, every fault, right? If let's just say this piece of equipment had 10 faults and every one of them said 0, that would mean that they had all parts on hand. So that's why I do a pivot table for the equipment number. And if it adds up to 0, so some of them have 2 parts. So all of the zeros, so if it had 100 parts on order and it gave you a 0 for every single fault, it would still sum up to be 0. So I'm going to sort that. You got a couple ways you could do more sort options, ascending, by sum of all parts on hand, and it'll sort it out for you. Go 0 all the way up, or you can even filter, and we'll just keep it like that for simplicity's sake. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these pieces of equipment that have zeros, and I'm going to create a VLOOKUP. That's why we did the VLOOKUP first. Oh, I got 2 ones. All right. Getting there, getting there, getting there. Boom. All right, so we're going to copy that, and I'm just going to paste it right here next to it, right? Here, paste the value. So what it did was it copied that equipment number. See that equipment number and a 0 right here. And now I'm going to add in here the words, all parts on hand. So all parts on hand. And then just like anything else, right? You go there, bam, double click, and I just put that in there for everything. Sorry about that. Hands falling asleep. So hey, so now we just created a VLOOKUP, and we're going to ask Excel, hey, Excel, look for this equipment number, and if you find this equipment number, bring back all parts on hand. And we're going to do that on our all parts on hand. So we created a pivot table down here. So this was our original ESR. Then we made that copy for all parts on hand, and then this is our pivot table. So we're going to go back to this right here. Instead of having these 0s and 1s in the all parts on hand column, I'm just going to, because I only got one hand, I'm just going to push delete. All right. And I'm going to clear that out. All parts on hand. So I just typed it back in there, but I deleted all those numbers. And so now we're going to use a VLOOKUP for that cell and ask Excel to bring us back whether or not the pivot table shows us all parts on hand. So I'll come up here, function, VLOOKUP, okay. So now we're going to have to scroll over. And so remember, this is, what do you want me to look for, Chief? I want you to look for this equipment number. That's what I want you to look for. Boom, equipment, highlight column Lima. All right, got it? Where? Well, we're going to go to our pivot table. Column D, if you look at that, column D is kind of covered up with this thing right here. Column D, drag it all the way over. And if you find that equipment number, bring me back what you see in 3, column 3. So got there, put a 3, word false. We always use false, A-L-S-E. Bam, that's what it looks like. Okay. So it's going to say, hey, that piece of equipment, so it's looking for that equipment number, right? All parts are on hand. Double click, bam. So now it did a VLOOKUP. Remember, it's a formula, it's a function. And so we're going to go ahead and highlight this, copy, paste value. So now we have determined which pieces of equipment have all parts on hand. Remember, we removed all of the faults that had zeros or 0.000, and now these are the ones that have all parts on hand. And so what we got to do now is we can pretty much get rid of, so now on the ESR, you know, it'll list every fault, you know, that is attached to that vehicle. And so it put all parts on hand for every single time that equipment number showed up. So eventually we're going to go down and eliminate all of the duplicates in this list. But right now, if I go in here and I filter for the NAs, so I want to see all the NAs, and then I can, so you got to be careful about deleting them, because so that piece of equipment has all parts. It still needs that part, so it's not applicable. So we'll leave it alone for now. So how about we just go in here and just remove duplicates? How about that? So I'm gonna take the filter off. Remove duplicate equipment numbers. So unselect everything and just select equipment number. Bam, equipment number. Now it's saying that there's 1,452 unique values, pieces of equipment that have all parts on hand. Okay, but that's not really the God honest truth. So sometimes there's code outs on here. And so we got to try to get rid of any trash that's remaining to make sure that we're not showing that a unit has all parts on hand when they really don't. So now I'm going to go in here to the notification text. Description. Notification text. I'm going to filter for the word code. So C-O-D-E. No matches, which is interesting. Let me make sure I didn't spell with a 0 or something. C-O-D-E. So code out, lower receiver damaged, and then code this flash. So it only shows up twice. So we're going to remove that lower receiver. And that, matter of fact, I'll just go ahead and remove both of those lines just in case that other one is a code out. Let's see what the system condition. So this one is a Charlie. So it's a waiting shop. They ordered a circuit card. So we're just going to delete the bottom one. So I'm going to delete that one. So that's the only code out according to this. Now, we go in here, filter, look at system condition code H, see if there's any system condition code H's in here. Well, that's where somebody would be basically saying it's a code out. System condition right there. I'm going to filter. I'm going to take a look at these and make sure that we're not reporting that some unit. So they may have a system condition code H. It may be breech lock adjustment, code out, lower receiver damaged. 25-foot fabric hose hole. I think they can fix a fabric hole. So we'll remove that one. Breech lock adjustment is not a code out. I don't know why they made an H. So probably just used the wrong code. So that's basically it, right? So we went through here, and now you can filter by unit, or you could put in another pivot table. So this is just, it has all duplicates removed. So duplicates removed. Unselect all, select equipment, bam, no duplicate values found. And so that's how, now we got to get rid of the NAs. So we just got to be careful with these zeros. So once we get rid of the NAs, because they don't have all parts on hand, that'll give us our total number. And we can go back in and filter the original ESR for single zeros, so that'll be fine. So undo parts on hand. So I'm going to delete the NAs, and that's going to give me the final count of all parts on hand. So I'm going to go over here, highlight that row, Control Shift down will highlight everything for you. Control Shift down. I'm going to delete all those NAs, delete rows. So now let's remove those filters. We come back here to all parts on hand, column. You see, it just shows all parts on hand. We did the math. Let's do a count. Control Shift down will give us a count. Control Shift down. So 864 pieces of equipment have all parts on hand. So you're always going to have all parts on hand. We have like hundreds of thousands of pieces of equipment. But we got to make sure we're hanging these parts right away when they come in. So we'll be written this in the division readiness review. And this ESR is as of July 30th, so it's pretty current. And so hopefully this is helpful to you to figure out how many pieces of equipment have all parts on hand. Remember, we summed it up to 0. Okay? Hope this is helpful. Thanks. Bye.